What was the general reaction at Mar-a-Lago last night after the speech?
Well, following up what President Trump had to say, when we saw Joe Biden, it was an unhinged madman who has an alternate view of reality. And in fact, it was quite remarkable to me that the mainstream media seemed to give Joe Biden some sort of participation trophy simply because he could stay up that late. Kind of reminds me of the old adage that you get 200 points on your SAT if you simply spell your name correctly. There was, of course, the Laken-Riley flub, which was just completely disrespectful. But I think what's going to stand out the most from last night's State of the Union from Joe Biden was what wasn't in there. There was nothing that reached across party lines, think criminal justice reform, that President Trump did. There's nothing that said we can do more as Americans or even humans, something that's inspirational, such as Space Force, which President Trump also did. But the single biggest thing is that there was no emotional connection or acknowledgement of the pain and suffering that Americans around the country have because of Bidenflation or the Biden migrant crisis, and the fact that 3/4 of the country think we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's the State of the Union, but the start of the speech sounded a lot like the state of Ukraine's union. He began the speech talking about Ukraine. Then he mentioned comments that Trump made about Vladimir Putin. Take a listen.
Wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader.
Jason, that comment getting a lot of attention last night. Can you put that into context for us? Because obviously when it comes to a comment like that, context is really important.
Yeah, context really is important. And what Joe is clearly forgetting, which we know that Joe has a problem remembering certain things, is that President Reagan also said you need to have peace through strength, that you need to have deterrence. And when you think back to the Obama-Biden administration, they lost Crimea. Ukraine did, to the Russians. Also, Russia invaded Ukraine, now under Joe Biden. But what President Trump was able to do, and the comments that Joe Biden were taking completely out of context, was the fact that President Trump got our NATO allies to start paying more of their bills. There were only, I believe, 3 countries that were reaching the 2% of GDP spending on military when President Trump started, finished up with about 9 or 10. And that number only started to go up of the 31 countries in NATO because of President Trump's pressure. And what the president was able to do was get all these countries moving, because he said if Article 5 is to be there and to be completely respected and upheld, which means it will defend all of our allies,
right,
Article 3, the funding article, has to be respected as well. And so President Trump got it so we're not footing the world's bills anymore.
Katie Britt, the Alabama freshman senator, delivered the GOP response last night. There has been a lot of buzz about the young senator possibly being on the ticket with Donald Trump in November. Did she hurt her chances last night or help them, in your opinion?
Well, I think what Katie Britt did was show a clear contrast between Joe Biden, who seemed unhinged and deranged and angry and very partisan in nature, simply speaking to his own base. I thought Katie Britt came across as someone who's genuinely sincere, who spoke as a wife, as a mother, as someone who's very connected with her community, as she put it, someone who's actually shopped for groceries in our supermarkets or pumped her own gas,
right,
as she pointed out about Joe Biden last night. But Joe Biden was angry. I thought Katie Britt was uplifting.
Do you think she's on the short list still?
I think there are a lot of folks who are on the president's both short and long list, and quite a good number of options to pick from. But I'd say Katie Britt did very well last night.
Okay, when do you expect the president to make that announcement? Does he make it in the near future, or does he wait until the convention in July?
I think it'll be further down the road. I don't think the president is in any rush to go and make that decision. We are effectively in the longest general election that we're ever going to have, and there's a long way to go. There are some very good options in front of President Trump, and quite frankly, I think the list might be getting longer, not shorter.